Let's make felted coasters. There are several ways of making coasters. You can make them any way you like. You can make round coasters, any shape at all. For this coaster project, we're going to make a organic circle, and then we're going to cut it into 4 so we have these really awesome looking coasters that you can trim if you like or leave it on. I love these little organic tails and waves. This coaster was needle felted and then wet felted. Here is one that's just been needle felted, and you can see by felting it everything has stuck together. This project we're going to make these 4 coasters, and we're going to do a little bit of needle felting and a little bit of wet felting. To start needle felting, you'll need a block, either a felting block or a yoga block. You can use a dense sponge, but if it's not dense, you're just going to break your needles. So here I have a single, this is my favorite, a single felting needle. Felting needles have little barbs, so little, almost like little needles, tiny little needles at the end of the needle. And this will tangle the wool, the roving, the fleece. And when it tangles up, it creates felt. We can also create felt by using water. You can use a single needle, or you can use these contraptions that have, there's 3 needles, 5 needles, and more needles. I have one that has 12 needles. So I'm going to start with just 1 needle, because that's a really great beginner place to start. So I'm going to just take my wool. If I try and take it apart here, it's not going to come apart. I'm going to bring my hands further apart and just pull it off. So when I pull this, this is called the staple. The staple is how long the sheep fleece, the sheep coat was. So this is about 4 inches. That's a good 4-inch staple, so that's really good. And each of these hairs have like scales on them, if you can imagine scales. So when we tangle the hairs, we're tangling the scales all together to make felt. Also, when we use water and soap to tangle, the scales open up and cling to each other. So if there's scales like this, and then they'll just cling to each other and you won't be able to take them apart. I always like to start with a little bit of needle felting just to get my form. I've got my boot tray here, and I'm just going to start by laying down my fleece, my wool, trying to make a circle. Because we want coasters to be stable, we don't want them to be too wonky, we don't have to have a ton of fleece here. That's why a little bit of fleece goes a very long way. Easier to add than to take away. So I've put it out like a starburst. Now I'm going to start putting a little bit across, using directions, different directions. There we go. That's good. Now just the other way. I'm going to stop here. See, I still have a lot left. Feel that? Very good. Now I'm going to lift it up. Come up nicely. Doesn't matter which side you put down. And I'm just going to put that on my block and start needle felting. With the needle, you want to go straight in and straight out. You don't want to go straight in and then turn and come out. You will break the needle. These things break pretty easily, so you want to be careful. And also watch your fingers. They are very sharp needles, and they will hurt, and you will draw blood. So I'm already tangling it. And again, I'm just going to show you the larger one. Let's see. So I'm doing 5 at once now. But you don't need that if you're a beginner. You can, nothing wrong with it. So I've taken it, so it's pretty much together now. I'm just going to do a little bit more. This needle felting will give me an idea if I want to add a little bit more fleece, wool. There's several different types of fleece and wool, and you would use the different types for different projects. Something wispy like this, merino, is really nice for this type of project. But if you were to make an animal, something 3D, like a 3D animal, you might want something that's a little bit more coarse with a shorter staple. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I like this, how it looks. I like both sides. I like that there's wispiness. See, pull that out. So I can continue doing a lot more needle felting till it gets to something like this. So this is not to this point right yet with the needle felt. But what I'm going to do is put this on a mat. I will show you, and we will roll it up. You can use just bubble wrap. You can also use these non-stick, like if you had a carpet or something that you want, like it's got the non-stick type of material, but it's bumpy. So this will help felt things. So I'm going to start with the bubble wrap. Instead of cutting my bubble wrap, I'm just going to, I'm just going to double it up a little bit, but because this project's a little bigger than the bubble wrap that I have, I just want to extend it. So now I'm going to pull out those wispy parts. I love the little wispy parts. I can add more, that's fine. And now I'm going to add some water. So this is just, I start with warm, soapy water. I like to use just any dish soap, any nice mild dish soap will do. And I start with warm water, but it gets to room temperature very quickly, and that's fine because if you have super duper hot water, this is going to felt too quickly. And I know I'm not finished yet. I know that there's areas that I want to add. So it's okay if it's cool water or warm temperature or room temperature. There we go. I use the boot tray because it's got the lips on the sides. Okay. I want to make sure that my hands are also soapy. If they're not, what's going to happen is if my hands are dry without being soapy, the soap slips, then I would put my hands on this and it would just lift up, and I don't want that. So I want to make sure That my hands are nice and soapy. I know I'm going to want to add more. You can see what it looks like. See, it's already starting to felt. Okay. I could tell I'm going to want to add some more here. Always have a towel near you. You will need a towel because you'll want to dry your hands. Okay, right now I'm going to dry my hands a little, and I'm going to add some more fleece. I want it here. Remember, I don't want it too thick, because if it's too thick, there's too much of a chance of there being uneven levels, and with uneven levels, and then you put a cup on it, it will fall. But because this is sheep's fleece, it's organic fleece, protein fleece, then it's going to be warm. This is, if you have a wool sweater, this is just like having a wool sweater. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit there, a little bit here. You can go on and on and on with this. You can add different embellishments. In other tutorials, I'm going to show you how to add some embroidered embellishments and some buttons and some beads. Okay, I am going to say that is enough. So I'm going to wet my hands again and get some more water on my project and just press down. See how that came up off my hand, and I don't want that. I don't want it to move around so much. There we go. Make sure my hands are nice and wet. Push down. See the soapy water coming up? It's great. Okay. Just by pushing down, I'm going to be agitating the wool. I don't want any dry parts when I go into the next process, the next part. There we go. You can also, once you're done this part, you can also do a little bit more needle felting if you find that there's maybe a hole. Okay, that's good enough. I'm just going to dry my hands just a little bit, just to move this along. Okay, so now I'm going to take my bubble wrap and fold it over. I don't want to fold it over the project, just before the project. And then I'm going to start, there we go, like that, and I'm going to start rolling. And you might have to roll like 100 times or more. I have got a mat protecting the floor, so that's fine. You can use anything. You can use any type of plastic that's going to help your floor not to get too wet. There we go. If it's too slippy here, dry your hands and keep going. Okay, what I'm going to do now is let's add this. Let's see what we can do here. So I'm just going to put that there, roll it up. There we go. You don't have to do that. I just find I'm going to get a little bit more control if I have this grippy thing. Okay, that's probably about 100. I'm just going to put my water back in the bowl, and let's take a look what we got. Let's move some of the water out of the way. Okay. And let's see what we got. Get more water out of the way. There we go. Okay. Your project will shrink. It always shrinks. Okay, let's take a look. See, there's a few holes that I'll want to patch up, or not. You don't have to, but for something like this where the goal of a coaster is not to injure your table, then I would I would repair holes. I can tell that it's as thick as I want it to be, that's for sure. And I want these nice sticking out tails. See if I can repair the hole just with what's existing. Okay, let's turn it over. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay. So with my fingers, I'm just agitating. There's a big hole there. Okay. But like I said, I'd rather start thin and add. And I can add with needle felting, which I think I might do with this. And then what I do is I will needle felt, or I will wet felt and needle felt. I'm going to just do a little bit of both. So I'm going to let this, I'm not going to repair right now because I want it to dry so I could see what I really want to do. This takes time. You have to be very patient. So I'm going to just show you, if I pull apart, it is felted. It's just thin right now, which is what I wanted. You can also, let's take out some soapy water. We're at the point that it won't felt to itself, so it's okay if if I left it like that, it would be fine. It won't felt anymore to itself. I definitely want to add some more needle felting once this dries. So this project will probably take about 3 days to get done. Now I want to felt it a little bit more. Here you go. You got to just give it a good little whack. And this is going to shrink those fibers. I can rinse this under water to get the soap out, but I'm okay with that because if I do that, that's just an added step. You can't know, it's fine. There we go. So you'll probably see how much it shrunk. There you see how it shrunk. I'm good with the holes. So what I'm going to do now is place this in front of a fan. I'm going to let it dry, see what it looks like, do some more needle felting to repair the holes, and then meet you back here for the next step. I like how this turned out. It's nice and dry. The wet felting is done. I do want to do some needle felting just to fill in some gaps so it's a nice even piece of fabric. I still will think about this, I might put a little bit of water and soap on the ends after I see what happens with the needle felting. So I've got my block and I'm just going to look at everything here and I'm going to just needle felt the ends, fill in a little bit of the blanks. I like my wispy organic little tails, little embellishments, but I don't like it when it's like this, like where there's a little bit of stringiness going on. So with the needle, I'm just felting away And again, if you want it to go quicker, you can use a larger needle. It will go faster, but this is fine. Okay, so that looks nice. See, it's a little bit more steady. Now here, I definitely want to fill in that hole. When I do bowls, I actually, if I'm not going to use this for anything but decoration, I actually like when there's some holes in it, because when I put a tea light or anything in here, it will come through the little embellishments, the little holes. So when I make a bowl, it's fine to have holes. But when I make a trivet, I don't want any holes. So I'm going to just add a little bit more. I'm going to go that way and that way. So this way it'll lock in the different directions. I like the combination look of wet felting and needle felting together. I'll show you a project that I had done. Just pull it out here. This is a scarf that I did, and I love, again, the little tails. And I added some silk. This started out really large, and then it gets thinner and thinner. And then just some little embellishments on the other side. This was needle felted and wet felted. So it's a really nice piece of fabric. It's very beautiful. This was a lot of fun to do. And what we're doing here with the coasters is just as fun as making clothing. But what I like about making coasters or trivets or the small balls or vessels or bowls is that it is a small, doable project. When you're making clothing, it's a huge expense, a huge amount of time. And if you don't practice on smaller, doable items that you can feel success with, jumping into doing clothing right away can be an exercise in frustration. There, so I've covered that up. Do the other side as well. So that looks nice. I like how wispy that is, and it actually made it quite even. I'm going to add some to the center. You can probably see my hand through there. Here. Just want to feel that. So you'll keep doing this. I'm going to do a little bit of the 5 needle felting just to hurry this along so that you can see the results. See how nicely that felts in there. Okay, just move it over again. There's some nice wispy bits. And let's needle felt them in. Love color combinations. You could do a monocolor or monotones where you have the same tones, or just a solo color. Now I'm just going to turn it over so you can see all the holes have been filled in. Oh, I really like how this turned out. So you do have the option of wet felting again. Just look at those instructions on how to wet felt and then leave it again for 24 hours, and then if you wanted to embellish it. If you do embellish with beads or buttons or embroidery, avoid the center. Just do it on the ends or the edges so that you don't have a wobbly cup on top. Look how pretty that is. That turned out very nice. And then just with scissors, you just cut in half, cut in quarters, and you will end up with, let's see, I love this. I love these nice wispy bits. So if there is any embellishing that you wanted to do it on the ends, like if you want to put just a big seed bead, or not a seed bead, I guess, a pony bead. Or again, if grandma gave you some costume jewelry and it broke, you can put that there. It would be really nice to do a little bit of, here I might put some silver thread along here, but I like how this looks. This very much gives me a feel of Arctic. I love this. This is beautiful. So any type of embellishments can go on there. This has been wet felted and needle felted, and it's not going anywhere. You want to avoid washing these in the washing machine. They will shrink their wool. If you do need to wash them, just run them under cold water without any soap, unless they absolutely got really dirty, then add some soap. But if you just run them under water and lay them flat to dry, that's a good way of taking care of it. So this is the tutorial for how to make 4 coasters.